Are you always forgetting things? There is way too much to remember nowadays. I can't even keep track myself. That's the problem that Rewind CEO Dan Siroker is solving. Backed by Andreessen Horowitz, Rewind is filling the cracks of the human memory. It securely and privately records everything that goes through your computer, everything you've seen and done, and leaves those recordings for easy access later. This means that you can instantly find out what you talked about on that Zoom meeting last Wednesday, or get a list of takeaways and to-do items from it. It has the potential to transform the way we record information. There's a future out there where we no longer have to take notes and all the information from our lives is at our fingertips. Coming up, Dan will tell you how that will happen and will give details on a new kind of AI-powered pendant that has already been purchased by thousands. It's leading us to a new kind of digital assistant that's very interesting. So I'm Robert Scoble, and today we're going to have maybe a little controversy on the show because Dan Siroker of Rewind AI has built a system that's always listening to me and always watching what I'm doing. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks
You're
for having
building
me.
one of these new products, these new categories of AIs that's always listening, always helping, always doing notes, right? Tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with Rewind and why we shouldn't be scared of it. Because it's scary as hell. It's like, oh, gee, this thing's listening to me all the time and watching me. Right?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. So I'm happy to talk about it. So Rewind came out of the experience I had going deaf in my 20s and then trying a hearing aid. And that experience felt magical because it felt like gaining a superpower. That's what it feels like to lose a sense and gain it back again. And from that, I think I learned a secret, which is that we live our lives limited by our biology. And we can't imagine what it would feel like to have what feels like superhuman capabilities without actually feeling it. So, when we started the company, it really was rooted around this vision of, can we do the same thing a hearing aid does for hearing, but for memory instead? People typically have really poor memories. 90% of memories are forgotten after a week. Typically, your memory peaks when you're 20 years old, and then every year thereafter gets worse. So that was kind of the thesis for the company. Can we build something that ideally is, as magical and ubiquitous as a hearing aid is for hearing or glasses are for vision, but for memory instead? And so you're right to bring up the privacy questions. And what's interesting is you look at the history of any new technology, it almost always follows the same pattern of sort of awe, shock, cynicism, and ultimately on its path to broad-based normalization, it goes through this kind of evolution. And a good example of this is the telephone. It may surprise you and some of your listeners that the very first and most common objection to the telephone when it first came onto the scene was privacy. It's kind of hard to imagine today because the telephone is so normalized that, like, what do you mean privacy? But the reason why the telephone was such a lightning rod around privacy was back when it was first introduced, you had to go to the general store to make a phone call. Even when it came to your home, switchboard operators could eavesdrop on your conversation. And so that is the moment that we're in right now with personalized AI. The benefits and the power are there, but the technology and the capabilities to overcome the proverbial eavesdropping switchboard operator aren't there yet. And so it's not the case that people should view our product or this kind of personalized AI as a choice between convenience and privacy. It's actually quite the opposite, is that the solution, the market leader in personalized AI will be that company that was able to overcome those privacy obstacles. And we've got lots of ideas. I'm happy to talk about what that specifically looks like. But I'm not here to say that privacy is dead. I think it's quite the opposite. I think the reason personalized AI hasn't been real yet is because no company has really built a privacy-first product to solve.
Yeah, let's talk about what does Rewind do if I'm on my Mac or a Windows box. What is it doing, and what is it? What are you going to take it and do with it in the future? But let's just start with the basics of what it does, because we're talking about, how it's listening, it's watching, but what is it actually doing on my screen?
Yeah, so Rewind is a personalized AI powered by everything you've seen, said, or heard. What that means is it's, in many ways, it shows up in the different devices you use. We started on the Mac. When you install it, it starts capturing your screen. It does OCR on what you see, so it turns that into text. It does ASR, automated speech recognition, on what you say and what you hear, and stores that. And that gets stored all locally on your machine. We as a company don't have access to it. If we were subpoenaed as a company, we couldn't give anything that's meaningfully useful because it's all stored locally and encrypted on your Mac. That was only possible, by the way, because Apple Silicon became good enough to make that imperceptible. So all of that happens in the background imperceptibly on your Mac. Very similarly, that's true on iPhone. If you download our iPhone app, we capture everything you see in Safari. You can do transcription. We capture your screenshots. We make that all searchable, all locally on your phone. So that's how we've started. We started with the phone. We started with Mac, the phone. We're working on Windows. In fact, we're launching the end of the year on Intel's new processor, which is going to be very exciting. And more recently, we got a lot of excitement around the pendant, which is really extending that idea of capturing everything you see, say, and hear to the real world. We do a lot on our devices, but there's so much more to life than what happens on your Mac or iPhone or Windows. And that's what the pendant offers. Again, entirely privacy first, all stored locally. It's in no way for us as a company or even your employer to snoop on its data, just for you to give you a personalized AI. And that's really the value is now that you have this data, you can ask it to help you. You can ask it to write you an email to somebody you might know, and it uses the context of your past to write that draft for you, or summarize a meeting, or hundreds of other things that AI and large language models are so perfectly well suited for, but now tailored to your data.
Yeah, this is really, there's a lot there. Let's dive into the pendant, because that clearly, you have a few competitors there, from Humane, which is a company started by two people who left Apple and are building a little pin, right? And you're building a pendant that hangs around your neck. What's in that pendant? It has microphone, a little speaker, and a computer inside. What's going on inside there?
Yeah, it's actually not that sophisticated. So, it's a wearable microphone that syncs with your phone. So almost all of the heavy lifting happens on your phone. I think probably Humane, has a different approach. I think they're putting a lot of the heavy lifting in the device itself. We don't.
They have
We think you're already
they have a
carrying
little
around
display that spits laser light out in front of you and puts things on the table in front of you or on your hand or stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and I'll just share, I have total respect for that team. I'm sure they're working really hard. When I first saw that, it reminded me a lot of my early career at Google. Google has this one challenge in which it views the sophistication of the technology as more important as the problem it's trying to solve. And if you look at the history of Google products, from Google Wave to Google Buzz to Google Glass, it all sort of rooted in this sort of focus on the sophistication of the technology, not does it actually solve a problem. So I'm very excited to see what problem does this Humane AI pin solve. I haven't really heard that yet. I can tell you, for us, what we're focused on is solving the problem of giving you perfect memory. That's the core problem that we started the company with. That's what we think AI in a privacy-first approach can solve uniquely well. We don't have a camera. We don't have any of the bells and whistles. We don't have a laser. It's as simple as a way to help you capture more of the things that if you had perfect memory, you'd be able to recall. But because we don't, we use technology to augment and give us that.
So let's say I'm wearing one of these and I have it all set up, and I meet you at a conference and I start talking to you for a bit about AI or something like that. What is it doing, and what would it capture out of that conversation, and what would it put on my phone, and how usable is that? What are your plans there?
Yes. So the most basic thing it will capture is what you say. So as the user of the product, we want to make sure that you can capture what you say, and do that in a way that you understand what happens to the data, where it gets stored, how it gets used. That, I think, is a really straightforward thing. It captures what you say, transcribes it, stores it all locally. We don't have access to it. Your employer doesn't have access to it, like I said. The bigger, broader question happens: what happens when you talk to somebody else? This is where consent is super important. There are certain settings in which the presumption of consent doesn't exist. So, public settings is one of them. Conference speaker, doesn't expect, unless they say at the beginning, this is off the record. Both legally and sort of ethically and morally and socially, I think people would understand if you're giving a big talk at a conference. People are taking notes, maybe people might be recording it. And so that's sort of the other extreme. I think that's, obviously something that people would be comfortable with. The part where you're having a one-on-one conversation, where maybe it's more private, that's where we have lots of ideas on how to, I would say, walk the tightrope without stepping on landmines around the privacy of the people around you. I think the naive approach that a lot of companies take is a red button or a blaring sign. I think that lacks creativity and sort of lacks sort of a real understanding of the problem to be solved. Because at the end of the day, the problem to be solved is making sure people aren't recorded without their consent. We have several ideas on how to do that. I'm happy to elaborate, but that's the problem that we're focused on solving. And I think that's what really differentiates us in this AI wearable category.
Tell me a little bit about the architecture of what's going on underneath the curtain. Do you have a large language model listening? Do you have a group of them? Tell me how this thing is working to figure out what I'm saying, how important it is, where to put it, all that stuff.
Yeah. So the basic way it works is sort of captures sound, and that sound that's turned into a feed to a local instance on your phone of Whisper. Whisper is an open source model that OpenAI produced, and it's fantastic at taking sound and turning it into words. That happens all locally, so it doesn't go off to some cloud transcription service. Happens all locally, transcribes what was said, and in addition to that, microphones have gotten so good, and even having multiple microphones help you here, that you're able to sort of identify based off of several heuristics who is actually speaking. And this is sort of the first area in which we are helping ensure people aren't recording without their consent. One of the ideas we have is to be able to actually use voice fingerprinting and speaker diarization, which is basically the idea of separating out the data of what one person says with what somebody else says, and use that as an indicator for what can be captured and what can't. So, for example, it's very possible that you can, capture what you say and store it all locally, and using, voice fingerprinting, know it was you and you give them consent, and only capture the voice of others who've affirmatively, verbally opted in. That I think is a much better approach than sort of a red blinking light that maybe you miss. And so that's one of the other ideas that we think will really help normalize this, this superpower.
Now, you said you're using Whisper. This is the API from OpenAI, right, for doing voice to text, right?
Yeah, well, when you say API, that kind of implies that it's in the cloud. It's all local, so Whisper is available through an API from them, but you can also just download it and run it all locally, and that's what we do on the phone. And today, by the way, you can test it out today. We have an iPhone app in the App Store, the Rewind iPhone app. It runs it all entirely locally. You can turn your Wi-Fi off. It works great to prove that it's not actually sending any data to the cloud.
Yeah, this Whisper system is really insane for people who haven't used it. I've been using it on the Chat GPT app, right? And you can be at a rock concert, like you could be at Coachella in the middle of the Sahara tent, and it will still hear you about 2 feet away from your mouth, even though there's 120 decibel music playing. It still understands what you're saying to the microphone, to the phone, right? It's really good. I mean, Kai-Fu Lee showed me NLP, natural language processing system at Microsoft 18 years ago, and it wasn't that good. Right? So
yeah, it's interesting. I actually studied computer science at Stanford, graduated 2005, and my honors thesis was on natural language processing. This was 18 years ago. What's funny is, like, what was then called AI is now just programming. It's not even really thought of as AI, just as it becomes better and more normalized. So, not to say that I had any vision into what the world looks like today, but it's certainly interesting to see how these things that were once, thought of as state art can get so much better through what large language models offer.
One thing I've been doing with the Chat GPT app is if on Friday night, and tonight's Friday night, I'm out with my friends and we start having an interesting conversation on something, I say, hey, hold on, I'm going to record this for Chat GPT. And I just opened the app up. I click the little record button, which is in the prompt window on the iPhone app, right? And it starts recording. And it listens. I just let it listen for a couple minutes. It doesn't need a whole lot, just a minute or two of that conversation, and then it starts getting involved in the conversation. It's like, oh, looks like you guys are having an interesting conversation about XYZ, right? And here's some more things to think about. I'm like, wow. Does that blow you away? I mean, this new capability of AI to listen to you have a conversation, and yeah. It'll be interesting to see how you turn it on for this kind of use case. How do you get consent from the other people, talking, so that okay, we can record this and keep notes on it?
Yeah, well, to answer your question, it absolutely blows me away. Every day I see something our product can do that I never. I know I've seen the code. I understand. Like, I still sometimes I'm baffled at the magic that large language models offer. And in particular, we got more lucky than good. We have been at this since We started the company March 2020. We've built this product that captures what you see saying here on your Mac. Launched that almost a year ago before even ChatGPT came along. And we just got lucky in that we've been capturing this amazing set of data in a really privacy sensitive way that pairs so beautifully with GPT-4. It's like we've got this amazing, bottle of wine, and you get this steak dinner with it. I'm both a vegetarian and I don't drink, but I assume people like that, and that those things together are just amazing combination. The reasoning of a large language model applied to your own personal data is what gives you that superpower of having a personalized AI.
For people who aren't in the AI bubble and don't know what all these terms are, large language model is this new machine that almost has a trillion little knobs on it, right? It's an insane machine. Tell me a little bit about what a large language model is and why it's so important to the future of your company.
Yeah, a large language model at the most basic level is pretty simple. It basically is a system that tries to predict what the next token should be given a sequence of tokens. And the way it does this is basically by consuming, or I guess you could say reading, a large set of data of those patterns in the past. And it learns based off of the data it's consumed. Usually, people say, this scours the web. Some cynics will say just uses Reddit data and content that's been produced in the world of real world reasoning, real world logic, real world text, and then becomes very, very good at predicting based off of just a few tokens what the next set of tokens should be. And you can think of tokens as like a word or partial word. And so the way that that technology can be applied, if you go to ChatGPT, how it works is you give it a question, and then it predicts what the answer should be, as if it were, trying to match what a human would answer. And just that concept alone is magical, that it can do things like, as it got better and better, trained on more and more data, at some level of data, it could all of a sudden do poetry. And then it could all of a sudden do jokes, and it can do that in a multimodal way.
Jokes are a little weak.
I have to say the jokes are pretty good. Maybe it's because I'm a dad of 3 kids, so my dad joke bar is low. But I have seen some pretty amazing jokes, and ability to understand jokes. That's the other part that it blows my mind. You can now, with multimodal, you can give it an image and ask it to explain why it's funny, and it understands it. It gets it. And that's something that I think is truly, when I saw this for the first time, 2 things happened. One, I realized how magical this is, but it also kind of knocked down a peg or two for me, this sort of like human knowledge superiority concept, like the idea that we're all that special because of what we can do with our brains. When you can see a machine do it, and with such a basic capability, it's kind of made me realize maybe we're not as special as we think we are. So I don't know what your reaction was to that, but that certainly was one of mine.
It's one thing to write a transcript. It's another thing to make that transcript smart and start going out to you're talking about buying a car. Let's go out to Kelley Blue Book and start getting information, or start doing some other things, make that transcript smarter. What are your plans on making the transcript, the notes that it takes on me, particularly with this pendant? How are you going to make my life better by doing this system?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it starts with recognizing that just collecting what you say in here is the foundation. It's sort of the data. But to take that data and turn it into information and ultimately into knowledge or even wisdom above that, it needs context. And that's why we think going beyond just what's in your devices and actually stitching together that data across all of your devices in the real world and in the digital world really enables you to do things like understand people. Like you interact with people in lots of different ways. You interview them, you DM with them, you email them, you Slack them. If you had a first world or sort of first order concept of that person and all of your interactions with that person, that's incredibly powerful. An example of today you can run using Rewind is an example I shared is I ask Rewind, write me an email to Sam Altman asking to catch up. And it can use all of the details of our past. The fact that we were introduced by Paul Graham in 2010, the fact that he was an investor in my last company, Optimizing, an investor in my current company, Rewind, all of those details are things that if you had a truly great representation of that person across every touch point you have, you can give you a truly great experience. And now it writes me a draft of something in my inbox. That's something where we assume like, my job is to write emails. Like, well, you don't need to. You can ultimately, if you can prompt an AI that has the data about your past, to do it for you, that's a superpower that gives you so much more productivity. And that's just one of many examples that AIs can use if it had the access in a privacy sensitive way to the data of your past.
Can I talk to Rewind and tell Rewind, hey, can you put this on my notes, or can you remind me of this the next time I'm at a Home Depot or something like that? I need a screwdriver, so can how crazy can this get? Because with the Chat GPT app, I can talk to Chat GPT. I can tell it, hey, can you listen to this for the last 2 minutes and then write me a blog post about it? And it will. It's
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's crazy that you can talk to the engine, while it's listening.
Yeah, there's some basic things it can do today. Things like drafting emails. One of the most magical features people love is that at the end of every one of your meetings, like a Zoom meeting, a little pop-up comes up from Rewind. It says, summarize and draft email. So you click it in one click, and then you get an email in your box to all of the participants in that meeting, by the way, not just, and it's literally set and forget it. You look brilliant for having written perfect notes. And so those are the kinds of workflow things that we think are really powerful. But it all starts with sort of a comprehensive understanding of the things you've seen, said, or heard, and then being able to actually use that understanding to do these kind of workflow tasks for you.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy what's possible. I'm sure you're watching all the vision stuff, the multimodal AIs that are coming from OpenAI and others. I've been playing with the Chat GPT camera app where you aim it at, I aimed it at a Ferrari on the road yesterday, and it said, "Oh, that's a Testarossa, and top speed is 180 miles an hour," or whatever it said. Are you thinking about how to use the camera as part of this system that's always listening and watching and doing things?
Not really. I mean, right. I think eventually, maybe. I think the word watching is scary. And that's where people get into surveillance. That's where I think Google Glass got a lot of things wrong around privacy. Right now, we're focused on the things you say and hear in the real world, and similarly on Zoom. When it comes to what you see, that I think is a sort of different level of privacy. And I go back to the analogy I made around the telephone. There is a set of technology that we need to build to get people to understand and trust more than anything, that their privacy and the data about that we could be collecting is safe. So we have straight away. That's why our pendant isn't the fancy camera. I'm sure if you had unlimited resources, you'd put all the bells and whistles. We would much rather a very cheap. Today you can pre-order it for $59. It may maybe cheaper, maybe more expensive, but that's we'd much rather a product like that than something that's hundreds of dollars that has, the Vision Pro has like 8 cameras or something obscene, and it's a beautiful piece of hardware. I've tried it, it's a beautiful piece of hardware, but it's definitely, it's not something that we think will, ultimately for us, our focus is give humans perfect memory. That's a hard enough problem enough. We would rather solve it as, with the best, and the minimal amount of hardware, if necessary, and ideally with software, frankly, and then and let the software do the magic, not overcomplicate things by having a huge hardware contraption.
How is networking at conferences going to change because of let's say this pendant? At Davos, I met a guy. He had a badge on. His name was Peter Pyatt, right? And it said he worked for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But I didn't know that that he discovered the Ebola virus when I met him. If I had, we'd had a much different conversation, right? So, one, can I talk to it and say, "Hey, I just met Peter Pyatt. Can you tell me a little bit about him?" Right? Put it on my phone or something. I'd love that kind of interaction. And then if we talk for a couple of minutes and we're like, "Oh, I need to, can I get your email? Can we figure out how to talk to the pendant to, remember the guy's email or his Twitter X account or LinkedIn account, stuff like that?"
Yeah. I think of all those things, the thing that feels most real is talking to yourself and taking action items. Right now, I think it's a bit of a leap to have it be interacting in the conversation with you. I'd rather it be passive, imperceptible, passively capturing what you want. And you can say, "Hey, it's great to meet you," person's name. I'll send you an email later today. And then it knows because it heard. And for good analogies, imagine it was a perfect chief of staff that followed you around everywhere you go. The president has this, and the president whispers in your ear, "This is the, who this, the dignitary is and this leader." They keep track of action items for you. That's something that I think a pendant or even any kind of a personalized AI should be able to do for you effortlessly. And then everything beyond that of being actively involved in the conversation, I think that would be great. But that's further along. I think starting with kind of being that passive, safety net, I think is a great place to start. And over time, as people get more comfortable and they see the power, they can rely more and more of their brain outsourced kind of to the device and not actively having to sort of remember action items and that kind of thing.
I've gone through 3,900 companies on X.com, all in AI, and I've grouped them up into different groups. I put you guys into this group called Holodeck, which is a group of companies that are doing things while I talk, or eventually leading to a world where I can talk to an environment and say, hey, take me to the Taj Mahal, and boom, it'll take me to Taj Mahal, right? Let's say in 5 or 10 years when we have glasses that can do that. A lot of these companies in this group thing are trying to build personalized AIs, i.e., they're trying to aim at a world where there'll be something that looks like a human or a robot that you talk to and talks back. Are you heading down that path, or do you? Because it seems like you're close to that, but you're really focused on utility without that human, appearance kind of thing, where it's talking back to, it's a human thing talking back to me and having a conversation with me, right?
Yeah, and we are absolutely that. We are a privacy first personalized AI. And you can, right now you type to it, you can't talk to it. Obviously, if on our mobile app you use your microphone dictation, you can. But the feature we have today in our product called Ask Rewind, you can literally ask it any question about anything you've seen, said, or heard, and it gives you an answer. You can ask it to summarize everything you've read about a topic. You can ask it to do work for you, to take all of the disparate signals and data you have around things you've seen, said, or heard, and imagine that's the kind of data that you have at your fingertips, but using the reasoning of a large language model. So that's absolutely what we're focused on.
How LLMs hallucinate once in a while, or confabulate a wrong answer, right? I was in an Austin restaurant asking ChatGPT what to eat at the restaurant, and it gave me 6 items, 2 of which had never been on the menu before, right? It just made them up, and it makes them up quite confidently. It's hard to tell what's the difference between the made up one and the ones that were real, right?
Yeah, and so we have a great answer to that. We have a great solution, which is we give you sources, and those sources are moments from your past. For example, I gave earlier the real example of write me an email to Sam Altman asking to catch up. When it says, hey, it's great to catch up. I remember fondly our introduction from Paul Graham in 2010. It has a citation, a link I can click that goes exactly to that moment in my past, that email that was introduced. So that is a key way to eliminate hallucinations, is to actually have source material that backs it up. I also think that our approach is so much less likely to hallucinate, because what we're doing isn't training a model. We're not training a model on your past. We're actually using the power of the large language model, which is great at reasoning, giving it the context of your past, and then giving a prompt to use that context using the reasoning of the large language model. So when it's in the context window of the prompt itself, that's what gets used, and you can refer directly to that in the response. So it massively improves the hallucination issue.
There's like 400 companies building developer tools, which is just also insane to me. I've never seen this kind of innovation for developers. How are you guys looking at the world of AI, and what are you excited about other than Rewind?
Yeah, I mean, I think developer tools are incredible. I think there is an era of engineer, of which I'm probably one of them, that was used to doing it yourself. And now some of the folks on my team, some of the younger folks, they are so much better than I ever was by pairing with an AI. They're able to learn entirely new languages. Right now, for example, one of our top focuses is on building a Windows app. It's entirely new programming language, tools, technology, frameworks, but with Copilot, trained on a ton of C# code, you can build things faster than if you were an expert in it yourself. So I think the paradigm of building things is incredibly different. It's kind of unsettling how easy it is to build things today, and that, I think, also means technology will get better and better, and it grow exponentially, because that last layer of technology is used to make the next layer. That's kind of the definition of an exponential. So I'm super excited about that. I also think AI has a tremendous opportunity to augment ourselves. I think a lot of people fear AI replacing people, which it certainly will. I think half of jobs will disappear just simply because of AI. But if you think about the jobs in which you can use technology to do better, I think that's a big opportunity as well. So I'm a big believer in AI augmenting human capabilities, not necessarily replacing them, as the big opportunity for the future.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have a special needs son who has a speech impediment. It's really hard to understand him. It's hard for me to understand him, and I'm his dad. So if you meet him in the street and he has to ask you something or needs your help, it's hard to understand him. How is the computer going to get to the place where it really understands the edge cases of human beings, people who have speech troubles, or don't know the native language very well, right? Might know Spanish really well, but not English.
Yeah, and I think there's such an opportunity for computers not just to take something that you could think of as a disability or something that sort of makes it harder to be in the world. For me, that's hearing, but for others, there's other ways technology can augment that capability. But then so much more. I think being able to actually have a conversation with anyone in the world in any language and have it simultaneously translated as if you're speaking that native language, that's not decades away. I mean, that's like months away before that becomes absolutely normalized. Today, you can do that kind of with your phone, but with wearables, I think that becomes even more powerful. And I think technology has that promise. I mean, that's if in some ways that is what technology is. It's a lever. It's a way to do a thing, but better because you use technology to do what it's good at, and you do what you're good at. And so I'm incredibly optimistic for the opportunity it has for for your son, for the world more broadly. And so I'm not one of these doomsday AI naysayers. I'm a optimist. I think AI is going to make everyone's lives better, and we're all going to look back at today and I think be surprised. Well, how were we so cynical? The same way people were cynical of the telephone. I think we'll look back the same ways at AI today.
Tell me a little bit. First of all, what's your business model? Tell me a little bit about the fundamentals of the company you're building. What's the business model? How was it funded as well?
Yeah, so the business model is a very simple. It's a subscription. We have a free product that you can download today at rewind.ai. We have an app in the App Store that's free. You can download that, Rewind AI. And our focus on that free product is allow you to access your data forever. You can download it, it's frictionless. We want to give you that first magical aha moment. Usually that's like if a tab crashed or you discarded an email, or maybe it's that first time it wrote a draft of a summary of a meeting. So that's what we give you for free. And then if you want to upgrade, you can subscribe for $29 per month or $19 if you're willing to pay 1 year upfront. So it's a SaaS subscription. We will never sell your data. We don't even have access to it if we could. And we also never do advertising. So we're very much from a business model perspective aligned around privacy and doing what's right for our users. I love the purity of the fact that if we build a great product, people love it, they'll pay for it. If we don't, they'll fire us, they'll churn, and we need to make the product better. So that's our business model. We've raised $33 million from great investors like Sam Altman, First Round Capital, Andreessen Horowitz, and NEA. We've got 25 million in the bank. We've got 6 years of runway, so we're not going anywhere. But yeah, that's the business.
That's crazy. Before we get to a demo, the Mac is really interesting because most people don't understand that if you buy a new Mac today with an M2 chip in it, that 21% of that is just for neural network, is for AI inferencing. And you're running in that space, right?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, the only way we could have built the first version for Rewind was Apple Silicon. What it did with this, it's called a system on a chip design. It took the key parts of what our app would have had to do in software and the CPU and offloaded it to hardware. So things like compression, taking everything you see on your screen and storing it efficiently on your machine. If we didn't do that efficiently, we compress things around 3,750 times smaller. If we didn't do that, you wouldn't be able to store things indefinitely, but we do. And so, effectively people have around 14 gigabytes a month of data they consume. That's plenty to have years of storage on your machine without even thinking about it. Similarly, for automated speech recognition, running Whisper locally, that's also leveraging the system on a chip. For OCR, that's running. So Apple, I think it was very smart to sort of build this architecture to enable software companies like us to really stand on the shoulder of giants and make it imperceptible. That's our goal. Is we want it running imperceptibly, so it's not hogging your resources, it's not hogging your battery, and it's giving you the superpower without any of the downside of the computation.
Um, Can we see your screen? Because you're an advanced user of this, I'm sure. It might be interesting for people. Plus, I'll be able to overlay your screen on top of the interview while you're talking, because it's pretty crazy what it does.
Sure. Yeah. Let me get that ready for you. That's out here.
Yeah, give us all your private data. We want Sam Altman's phone number. What was fundraising for like you for you? Because most people don't have the experience you do getting this kind of money from these kind of quality of people. Any advice for other entrepreneurs? I mean, there's thousands of companies that are chasing funding right now, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw this, but we did this kind of crazy thing where we actually raised our Series A in public. So about in April, I was just getting inundated with investors trying to meet, and we didn't really need the money. We just raised our seed from Andreessen, and I realized, wow, actually, you would build so much trust with users and customers to just put our pitch deck out there. I'd been giving this pitch a lot. It's 7 minutes. I put it out there and it absolutely went viral. We had like 4 million views or maybe 2 million. I don't know what it was. And at the end of the pitch, almost kind of like a joke, I said, go to rewind.ai/invest. And if you're interested, fill out this form. And it's like, what's your name? What's your firm? How much do you want to invest? And at what valuation? And of course, are you an accredited investor? That's required if you do this publicly. And we got like 1,000 responses, and which is awesome because then I could plot kind of like what is the fair market value of your company, which is so hard to do as a private company. So make sure we don't get over our skis. We had 20 people want to invest at $1 billion valuation, but that was kind of insane. We ended up raising at a $350 million valuation. And what I also loved about that is it's selected for the kind of investor that doesn't have this ego associated with us as a founder coming to their Sand Hill Road office and kissing their ring. We wanted the kind of investor who's like, look, we're in this for the long term. We recognize you're busy. We'll put in an offer. Our ego isn't so big that we can't just submit a form and get to know you. And by the way, I didn't just take the biggest, as I said, the biggest offer. I actually then spent the next week, I put this out there as well. I sent, basically back-to-back meetings for 5 days straight, really getting to know the right investors. And so that's how I raised our Series A. We still haven't spent $1 of it, but it's good to be in the right place at the right time. I'll just say that.
It sure is. And the funding door is wide open at the moment. It might not be for long, but it is open right now. So congrats.
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to give us a demo now?
Sure. Yeah. Let me share my screen here, and I will give you a quick demo. So this is my screen, and you'll see a nice effect here because this is the interview, the podcast site. But if I want, I could open up Rewind. I could rewind time. So I'm just going back and forth here. This is our conversation just 20 seconds ago. Everything on my screen from the past is copy and pasteable. I can just select it and copy it. So if I ever want to see anything in the past that I want to go back to, that's a very simple thing. I can search for anything I've seen on my screen. But the real power comes from our Ask Rewind feature here. So I'll just ask it a question here. Let me try something. Write an email to Robert Scoble, thanking him for having me on his podcast. All right, so let's try this. And so what this will do is it'll take every time your name is referred to in the past, it'll take the context of our prior conversation, and it will actually create a email that I can copy and paste and send to you. You can see here it uses this interview itself, the link to the Squadcast link, and it actually uses that as a source. So I can go back to that moment in the past, the transcript of our conversation, to generate this. That's one of many examples. This is a good one because your name appears a couple times, in my screen. It certainly appears a lot in Twitter. So that's just one of many examples of using the context of your past, using the sources of things you've seen, said, or heard as the basis, the context for what you generate. And after this meeting, I'll copy and paste this, and I'll send it to you so you get a nice personalized email from me. Don't think too less of it because AI helped me make it.
That's awesome. This new world is just so helpful to, get into. The problem is, how do we get people into this world where they're willing to put a tool on their Mac that's always listening, always watching, and building these kinds of memory aids, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it starts with recognizing that the most important thing to get right is trust and privacy. And that was true of any technology revolution. I think Facebook in many ways did the world a disservice by making it feel like there's a trade-off between convenience and privacy. People think, when you put pictures on the internet, you lose your privacy. I think you can have both. And that's, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I earnestly think we can build a product that delivers on the promise of personalized AI while not compromising your privacy. And that's the thing we're trying to solve. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe people don't care about privacy anymore. And maybe the
Most people
solution out there
do.
that
Most
wins.
people do, and
Yeah.
certainly most people who have never thought of trying a tool like yours, right? Because they haven't even really thought about what the large language model can do. I mean, probably in one of the future shows, we have my psychiatrist who built a system to listen to her therapy sessions, and I was patient number one. She talked to me for half an hour and it nailed all my mental illnesses. I mean, in highly scientific, detailed notes, like 7 different kinds of notes, just from a 30-minute conversation where it was just listening, not watching, not doing. It's pretty insane what the capabilities of this technology are, right? And when people see that, they get afraid because, oh, geez, you mean if I talk to a microphone, it can know all of my mental illnesses? Whoa, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, and I think it's reflecting and understanding what the concerns are. What's the concern around what's going to happen to the data and how could it be, in a place you wouldn't want. But I don't think those are unsolvable problems. A good example is, today our product integrates with GPT-4. Most people are fine with that. But I would say, and most people, I mean, most early adopters of our product are fine with that. But to really go to, if you look at the Jeffrey Moore's, crossing the chasm technology adoption curve, like to really get to the early majority or certainly the late majority, you need a product that's entirely local. You need a product that if you turn your Wi-Fi off, everything works. And that's what local LLMs will offer. We demoed this on stage with Pat Gelsinger, the CEO of Intel, just a few weeks ago, running Ask Rewind, our Rewind product, entirely local using Llama 2 on one of the new Windows Intel chips, and it was magical. He gave earlier in his keynote, he told the story of how he wears a hearing aid as well, and one of his favorite sounds is the sound of his granddaughters calling him Papa. And we actually asked locally on the machine that was sitting there on stage, what's Pat's favorite sound? And it's able to do that using the data it captures all locally. So those are the kinds of things. That's what I mean by making the eavesdropping switchboard operator obsolete. Those are the kinds of technologies we can build to give you the power of personalized AI without any compromises around privacy.
Yeah, and to me, it's not a privacy thing. Running locally, like the Peter Pyatt example I gave you, I wasn't connected. I didn't have Google. I didn't have Wi-Fi. I was in a conference room where none of that was working, right? And so if I am going to really rely on such a system to memorize everything and help me out as I live my life, I want it to work when it's not connected. And there are times, even in modern society, when you're not connected. You go to Yellowstone National Park, there's no connection unless you brought your own Starlink, right? And most people don't. So you're out in the middle of nowhere. Well, I want my pendant to still be working, right?
Yeah, and we don't do the local stuff because of that. I mean, that's a nice to have. We do it because we want to prove that your data is safe. We want to prove that it's not going to some nefarious place, that it's not going to our servers. And so that's why I called sort of the Wi-Fi test. And that was, I think what people picked up on is, wow, this thing doesn't have to. That's where I think people get fear, is like what happens. And today, when you make a phone call, you pick up your phone and you call somebody, are you afraid that some switchboard operator is listening to it? Probably not. Maybe you're afraid of the NSA, and maybe that's fair. But the switchboard operators, they're out of the business. They don't exist. And I think that's what we're trying to overcome with our product, is how do we build it so that people don't worry about the switchboard operator? And that's where we are today with personalized AI. I think we can get past that. And it's just a question of building the right technology and features to do so.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for giving me a rundown. I think you're real exciting. Do you have 2 or 3 other companies that you're watching in the AI space? Doesn't necessarily need to be a competitor, but what got you? What has you excited right now?
Yeah, there's a couple companies I'm excited about. I won't name them because I don't want to give too much attention. But there's the idea of taking a or basically taking a ticket in my backlog, like of our linear. We have linear as our project management system, and taking that ticket and turning it into a pull request that I can review, and sort of taking all that low hanging fruit of things that engineers on your team would have otherwise had to build. I think is super exciting. There's some interesting companies in that category.
Yep, there's a couple on my developer tools list on x.com.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that's a huge opportunity. I think communication can get better through AI as well. There's very often, they'll have these automatic dubbers that will kind of take your video and not just dub it, but also make your lips move. I do think that there are some fears that might, cause some deep fakes, but I think that's interesting. It creates, I think especially in Silicon Valley, people have this very myopic view of the world, and they lose sight of the fact that there's like this whole planet out there, mostly non-Americans, certainly mostly non-tech people, who probably don't know what you do or care what you do. Maybe they don't speak your language. And I think breaking down those barriers with AI is also incredibly exciting.
Totally agree. It's been a pleasure talking to you on one of the first shows that I'm doing. You're representative of a whole bunch of new kinds of AI companies that are coming along trying to help people by using this new technology. So it's really exciting. Um, you know, one last thing. I'm starting to meet entrepreneurs who are running orchestras of models, not necessarily all LLMs, but a group of LLMs that might be arguing with each other, correcting each other's answers, right? Rating each other's answers, that kind of thing. Um, Tell me about it. 5-10 years from now, what does software look like to you?
Yeah, I think 5 or 10 years from now, software is going to look very much like it does today, but the abstraction layer will be much higher. So the things that otherwise, it's maybe the equivalent of going from assembly to an object-oriented programming language. You can now go up to literally writing in sentence form or drawing on a napkin what you think the technology or software should do, and it abstracts away all of the complexity of making that real. In the same way that memory managed object-oriented programming language abstracts away all of the underlying assembly that it generates. So I think that's like the future of what software software creation. The apps themselves will be amazing. They will be, and I think they will be described best as superpowers. Like that is the true opportunity for technology and software, is to give us the capabilities that we didn't even realize we were missing until we felt them. And that's what we want to do for personalized AI.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. You get you get your tool at rewind.ai, and you can buy the pendant. What do you call the pendant again?
It's the Rewind
pendant. I got one on order.
You can pre-order it. Yeah, you can pre-order that at rewind.ai/pendant for $59.
Yeah, I got one on order. I can't wait to see that. That's a whole new genre of consumer electronics coming. So that's going to be interesting to watch for you do. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.